Hello, and welcome to my podcast, brought to you by me, Vegan Danielle. Tune in as we discuss vegan-related topics ranging from cooking to fitness and nonprofits to small businesses. So sit back, grab a glass of almond milk, and listen up, because here comes another episode. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. I am your host, Vegan Danielle, and on the phone with me today is Anthony Bucci, better known as the Convicted Vegan. Anthony started going by this name for a few reasons. One, because he spent 19 years in prison and then became a changed man, and the other is about veganism. But I'm going to let him explain. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, how you doing, Danielle?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So let's start from the beginning. Before you started using the name Convicted Vegan, what was life like for you, let's say around childhood?
Okay, I'm from Boston, so I grew up on the mean streets of Boston. I come from a second-generation Italian family. My father was a manager of a couple nightclubs. He was a heavy drinker, very mentally and physically abusive, so it was a tough childhood. My mother, finally, when I was 5 years old, she took us out of that household via a state police escort. She took us out. My mother's my hero. I always say this, but I can't help it. She's the most amazing woman I know. We moved to a bordering town. She worked 3 jobs. So I basically, as a child, I grew up on the street, like running the streets at a very young age. And that was my childhood.
Okay. Now, having that kind of life, I think most people can assume that you could get in some trouble doing that, right? So when was the first time you got in trouble with the law, and what was it for, if you don't mind answering?
Actually, I had a good run. I was doing my dirt, but then I got married at a young age. I got married at 22. I had 3 daughters. By the time I was like 25, 26, I bought my first house. I think I was 23. Life was good. What I was doing was I was raising my children and my wife under my old belief system, which I grew up with, that as long as you provided for your family and you put them in a nice house, bought nice clothes, cars, and all that, you were a good father / good husband, good person. So that's how I grew up. I had a good run. I ran the streets while I was married. So, I finally took my first pinch when I was about 36 years old. I started late. And that was for a distribution of marijuana. I got a 41-month sentence. Wasn't enough for a guy like me. Prison back then was called Club Fed. So I was in there making contacts. It was basically crime school. So when I got out, my wife divorced me. She had enough of my selfishness. So when I got out, I hit the ground running. I lasted 4 years on the street.
And then what happened? That led to your larger prison sentence, correct?
Correct. Like I said, I lasted 4 years on the street. I got arrested the second time was for conspiracy to distribute cocaine. It was a 1-day conspiracy. I was forced to go to trial because I wouldn't cooperate with the government, and they threw the book at me. I got 21 years.
Jeez. Do you remember?
I went to prison. Yeah.
Do you remember what you were thinking at that point, getting a prison term that long?
To be honest with you, I was so in my own world and my selfishness and all that. It was all about me. I had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't learn any lesson. Here I was walking out of the courtroom to do 21 years, and all I cared about was looking cool, having my shoulders back, my chin up, showing no weakness.
Yeah.
And then I went to prison, and I carried it on in there. I had a chip on my shoulder and got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm assuming a lot of people that are listening to this right now haven't ever done any time in prison and might not really know much of what goes on in there, maybe besides the TV shows that everybody's putting on. And I know you can't obviously discuss exact details of anything, but what was it like in prison? Like, what time do you wake up? What were your days like? What did you do while you were in there?
For a guy like me, I had a cushiony job. I would sleep in, stay up late. You know, I still didn't have any routine in prison. I was doing whatever I wanted, when I wanted. If anybody crossed me, it was pedal to the metal. We were fighting or worse. So until I got in trouble in 2009, before that, I was selfish. Nobody had my back on the outside world other than my mother at the time. My kids were very upset at me because I hadn't been there for their whole childhood. I'm doing 21 years. My friends all fell off the map, other than one or two guys. So before I got in prison in trouble, and I had my spiritual awakening in 2009, I didn't care about nothing or nobody.
Okay. Now, I know at one point you did spend some time in solitary confinement. So for those that don't know what that means, what is it? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do?
You're in 24-hour lockdown. Once in a while, you get an hour of recreation. It's 6x10 concrete cell, metal door with a slot in the door where they slide your food through. You get clothing every couple days if they're not too busy, if people aren't acting up. Basically, it's you in a cell with totally oblivious to anything that's going on in the world.
And how long did you spend in solitary?
Well, in between my two prison sentences, in 2009, when I hit rock bottom, I had about 30 to 36 months in solitary confinement under my belt.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That must have taken a toll on you mentally, I'm assuming.
I don't know. Look at me. I'm not just another pretty face. No. Yeah, it did. And finally, I had enough. And like I said, in 2009, I went to solitary confinement. And, I was feeling sorry for myself, which I know I did it to myself at that point. And I said to myself, either I'm not coming out of here alive or I have to change as a man.
Absolutely.
And I actually had a spiritual awakening. I was asking God for help. I was looking up at the ceiling. And I said, God, please help me because I can't do this anymore. Either I'm not coming out here alive, like I said, or please show me the way. And almost instantly, the door knocked. I was in Pennsylvania prison. A guard from Massachusetts, Rhode Island line, over 500 miles from home, who worked there, picked up an overtime shift and was knocking at my door when I was asking God for help. And he was one of the only guards at the time that I talked to because, I was Joe Convict. I don't talk to cops. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, it was like a miracle. This guy that I talked to, out of the few I talked to, knocks at the door right after I asked God for help. And that was basically the start of my spiritual awakening because he had paper with him and he was like, Uchi, come here. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And then he said, come on, I got some paper for you. And then it clicked in my head how I was asking God for help. This guy is from, like I said, 500 miles from home, picking up an overtime shift with paper. I always wanted to write a book. Writing was my passion. I won all kinds of essay contests as a kid, even though I was a wild kid. That was the one thing I liked at school was writing. So I went to the door and I said, give me as much paper as you can. And that's how I started writing my book, Infinity Crew. Infinity Crew, I saved my life.
That's amazing. And I can't wait to talk more about your book. Before we get into that, though, I know you've mentioned a few times you had this spiritual awakening and then you started writing your book. And I know a lot of things kind of happened around this time. When did the idea of veganism enter your life? Because I know before this, you were eating, typical Italian meals, right? Like family meatballs, stuff like that, family inspired meals, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get to veganism, can I tell you about my, what it evolved for me from the solitary confinement?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I hadn't yet, like gone to the vegan route. At that point in time, after the God gave me the paper, I started like soul searching. I started questioning my very existence. I started questioning my belief system, how my traditional ways were affecting my loved ones. I decided right then and there I needed to do a 180 and change my life. So when I got out of solitary confinement, I had started actually it was a screenplay at the time. Now it's a book, but at the time I started writing my screenplay. When I got out, I started educating myself. I took over 50 educational classes, some college correspondence, paralegal, draftsman, just all kinds of college courses. I volunteered and took care of the sick and terminally ill inmates while I was in prison. I had a great living situation. I had my own cell. I was in preferred housing. I left all that and went to just a regular room to help these people. I gave up everything. I decided, I wanted to be a better person, and that was the first step. So I educated myself. I started taking care of the sick and terminally ill. And then when I had a chance, I transferred to a prison in Massachusetts that had a dog program. Mm. So I was a dog handler. I trained dogs. Dogs actually lived in my room. And I trained dogs for the handicapped. I graduated 2 dogs. One went to a hospital for troubled teenagers, ages 10 to 13. The other one went to a courthouse for young kids that were testifying in court, to keep them calm. And they were my relief system too.
That's cool.
I raised them from 6 weeks old to 13 months when they graduated. And they lived right in the room with me. It was unbelievable.
That's so cool. That must have given you a nice companion too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. I was their best customer. All right. After that, I went to Berlin, New Hampshire, and I had been studying the law. Like I said, paralegal. I got my paralegal degree, and I filed a motion. See, what happened was every place I went. Well, let me back up. In 2016, my mother had a stroke, and it was a rare stroke through her spine, and she was paralyzed. So I was putting in motions for compassionate release in 2016, 17, and 18. You could only put them into the warden. You had one shot at it. It was always a generic rubber stamp, denial. So what happened was when prison reform hit and they passed prison reform, they brought in compassionate release. So if you got denied by the warden, then you could take it to federal court. So what happened was it was 2019, yes, I filed a motion for compassionate release. The warden did his little rubber stamp thing after 30 days. And then I filed it in federal court. I got some play. The judge, they wrote to me and said, get an attorney. So I wrote different lawyers, and a girl I knew who used to come actually talk to me about the law, just visit me in different prisons. She was interested in helping me, so she signed on board. She rewrote the motion I filed, and she argued it for me. And on October 7th, 2019, I had a video conference. I was up in Berlin, New Hampshire, and I won an immediate release. I was thrust back into society. I was the first one in the United States in the federal system to win a parental compassionate release. Before me, it was just given to if you were going home to take care of a child, say your wife died, or if there was a woman in prison, say her husband died, they would sometimes grant them to go home and take care of a child if you were the only immediate family member alive, or if something happened with your wife and there was nobody else to take care, they did it for spouses and children. I personally broadened compassionate release to include parents.
That's
so I'm proud
cool.
of that because a lot of people are going home now to take care of their parents that need their help. So that was great. That was an amazing accomplishment that I'm proud of.
Yeah, that's amazing.
My way of giving back.
Yeah. And that's something that just keeps on giving too, because there's going to be inmate after inmate that has these situations, and that's really awesome. They've been set up that way now. Yeah.
So that day, I was shell-shocked. They let me out of prison after 15 and a half years. Everything had changed. I went away. There was flip phones. This seems like so much more people on the highways now. Everything's congested. When I got out of prison, I had a hard time like getting adjusted. I had to go to seek therapy. I had anxiety. I had PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing great now, but it was a really, really, you'd think, you'd just jump for joy and you could leave and, start your life again. But reintegrating it back into society was really tough, especially after all those years.
Yeah, I bet. I've heard so many stories like this too. I remember talking to you on the phone before our conversation and telling you that I had spoken to another man that had a similar situation, and it was like anytime he heard a loud noise or something that resembled, a fight from prison, it was like automatic duck or, something, he would react in that way because he was just so used to living like that all the time. And that's got to be kind of hard to do after a while.
Yeah. It was really rough. So I'm being vulnerable and I'm telling this story to help others.
Yeah, no, and it's perfect because people can relate to that vulnerability and it's cool. It's part of your story and I love it. Now, at what point did you start hearing about veganism? This was while you were in prison, right?
Yeah. What happened was that time when I was in solitary confinement, my mother sent me some books and some of them were plant-based. And then I was intrigued by it and I asked her to send me books on veganism. But at that point, I wasn't ready. Like, it opened my eyes, but first I had to survive in prison and so I went pescatarian at first, mostly just eating fish. I gave up on meat. They were serving us meat anyways. It was really old and disgusting. But, reading about veganism and the plant-based really opened my eyes because my whole life was like, I had been living wrong and I just couldn't believe like what I had been doing. Yeah. I was blown away.
Yeah, I bet.
So what I did was I changed as a guy. I evolved into a better person. I started eating cleaner, better, but I still didn't have access to the right tools. And then I turned full vegan, and I can explain that when I was released from prison.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So when was your actual release date? Because I know you were released early.
Yes, I was released October 7th, 2019.
Okay. So just a little over a year ago.
Yeah, like 13 and a half months ago. I became vegan last October. What happened was I got out, I met a girl, her name was Natalie, and she was vegan, and she, we started, we had a similar interest, and she started educating me, and we watched a lot of movies. I had access to books. We watched documentaries and movies about plant-based / vegan lifestyle. I watched like Game Changers, What the Health, Cowspiracy, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And I had access to all this information. To tell you the truth, Danielle, I was completely blown away by the lifestyle I had lived my whole life. Everything I was born and raised to believe was contrary to what I was now learning. So watching these documentaries actually made me sad, like really sad and like sick to my stomach that my whole life to this point was not who I am, mm-hmm. especially who I am today. I called myself an animal lover my whole life because I like dogs and cats, right? And then I'm watching these films and I'm learning there's over 800 million different species of animals in the world. Here I am like loving two and calling myself an animal lover. Meanwhile, my body is a cemetery for dead animals. You know what I mean? It just was, I don't know. It was definitely an eye opener. And like I said, I was sick to my stomach and like, I couldn't believe the person I was, and I think a lot of people are ignorant to this, like, because even now when they say you're vegan, I'm like, yeah, they're saying, people still say it to me to this day. Like my parents and everybody else told me, you were born to eat meat. These animals are here for you to eat. Like I would question it at a young age because I had an experience where we had pet chickens. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather took me in the backyard and killed one of the chickens in front of me and then made me participate. And I really couldn't do it. And from that day on, I stopped eating chicken as a kid. And I was like, because that's my pet, Grandpa. And he was like, no, you've become a man and this is what a man does. And these animals are put on the world for us to eat. We're the smartest species. And, and that was the environment and the belief system that I was basically brainwashed with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had no idea. When I watched those videos and documentaries, like I said, I was so sad, like seeing those animals shake, and it was sickening. I could never eat a piece of meat again.
Yeah. Now, you got out in October, so your first Thanksgiving out, you spent with your family, right?
That was a nightmare.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing?
I just had turned vegan, maybe a month, not even a month before, and actually about a month. And my family came over, and they were all happy, so happy that I was home. I hadn't had a Thanksgiving. It's been 16 years. And they bring the turkey cooked, because I live with my mom. I take care of my mom. That was part of the motion. And they bring the turkey, the Italian food, the meatballs, the sausages, the stuffing with the sausage in it, eggplant with the cheese on it, and I didn't eat nothing. I bought a Whole Foods fake turkey, made potatoes with it, and they were so upset with me. They said they're never going to eat another holiday with me because they were like insulted. I disrespected them by not eating their food. See, they must not have had, they had the same belief as me, and they went through all the trouble of cooking. And here I was not eating at my first Thanksgiving home.
Yeah.
And you can't explain to people unless they're ready and open about veganism. Because everybody, like I said, a lot of people are under the impression that the animals were put on this earth for us to eat. And the way I look at it too, if I didn't commit suicide in prison, I wasn't going to get out of prison and commit suicide by what I'm eating.
Right. That's a good point.
Right.
So I want to ask you a personal question, maybe you can give some advice here, because this is one of the most common questions or statements I get from people is they say, wow, I would really love to be vegan. I love animals, but I can't because of my family, because of my culture, because my family doesn't want me to go vegan. So if someone were to say that to you right now, what would you suggest to them?
I would say research, watch these documentaries. And if you can still be vegan, cannot be vegan, then God bless you. You don't deserve this lifestyle, because that means you're not a good person.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it anyways. If you educate yourself and you see those poor animals, the way they treat them, the asshole, the belly button, living in piss and shit, pardon my French, but that's the way it is. And the fear in their eyes before they get killed, and these guys just slicing their throats. It's so sad. It's so disgusting.
Yeah.
Here I am, I did all this time in prison, but that made me weak watching that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen as well.
Yep. I hate it.
Yeah. So since you've been vegan, obviously you've had this huge emotional/spiritual awakening before the whole vegan thing started. But now, have you noticed any changes in your emotional health and your physical health, anything like that?
Well, I became vegan for the animals, right? But the result of veganism is so much better health and the environment. So, it just had to happen. I didn't know it was going to win in me, at least. It just happened. So before I got out of prison, my cholesterol was in the high 240s. Today it's in 180.
Wow.
So I've dropped 60, 70 points. The first 42 days of the vegan, I ate so raw, I dropped my cholesterol 40 points in 42 days.
Wow.
So ton of health benefits, but spiritually, that's the best part. I feel like such a better person. I feel cleansed. When I was selling my drugs and running the street and making that illegal money, dirty money, as you call it, I was like Robin Hood. I was giving away $100 bills like they were Altoids, trying to cleanse my soul. I see somebody without money at the laundromat, an old couple, here's $100. I would do that all the time. Poor people or somebody at the store that couldn't afford something, bang, I give them a $100 bill like it was nothing. Like I said, like Altoids. Now I'm cleansing my soul the right way, staying crime-free, drug-free, living a compassionate, vegan life, animal cruelty-free lifestyle. And that's how I'm cleansing my soul now, the right way. and it feels so right. Like veganism is my calling. And to go all those years, my only wish is I known earlier in life, but I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying every day. Nobody's perfect. And, I'm trying to be a better person. First and foremost, we're saving an animal a day. We're helping the environment for our kids, for their futures, and we're getting healthy. But, you can't force it upon anybody. People have to be ready. Like when I got out, I was ready. Had it been 10 years earlier, I would have just told Natalie, no way, you're crazy.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah, I think a lot of us, like we say, well, the only regret that we have is that we wish we would have gone sooner, but most of us wouldn't have been ready to hear it sooner.
No, it took me down the wrong path to get to the right path.
That's all right. You still made it down the path, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I do grounding. Do you do grounding?
Oh man. I should more. I do sometimes when I do, I've done some martial arts classes with some friends, and we'll do some breath work and grounding work beforehand. But that's something I got to start practicing every day, because meditation, grounding, all those kind of things are like something that are really easy for me to be like, oh, I'm running late or whatever. And I don't realize how much of an impact it has until a few weeks goes by. And then I'm like, oh. So we mentioned earlier you were writing originally a screenplay, which turned into a book called Infinity Crew. So first, I noticed the cover on the book. So for those listening, it's a guy in handcuffs with an infinity symbol on his back. So what does that represent, and who did your artwork?
I designed it myself. And that cover is special to me. I launched the Convicted Vegan with, and I had an artist. So I personally drew the cover, and then she helped me. But the cover means so much to me because it's like my story of redemption. That's why I have, the flames. Mm-hmm. Because I rose from the ashes like the phoenix.
That's awesome.
Nobody knows that, but that's my hidden message behind it.
Now they know.
Because, I was in the darkness so long I became the darkness. So the fire, the ashes, I rose, and I'm continuing to rise. Right now I'm only crawling. Hopefully I'll be getting on my feet soon. It's a journey. It's been a great journey, and I love it. Veganism is front and center in my life now. But I have, different things going on. But I'll always stay true to being vegan.
Yeah. So is the book kind of about your life story then?
So the book is based on some true crimes, but the names have been changed to protect the guilty.
And the innocent,
but
right?
That doesn't mean, some of it is made up. It's just stories I've heard, like the part of the story. Okay, when I was a little kid, a defining moment in my life I put in there. Because like I said, my father was a drinker. He was very mentally and physically abusive. So when I was about 9 years old, I went to visit him. And when I was visiting him, somebody beat me up and took my bike. I had a brand new bike. So I went home all beaten up and, black eye. And a normal father would be like, where does this kid live? Let's go. I want to go talk to his father, tell him what happened. Or call the cops, which my family didn't believe in. But, there was a different way to handle it, a normal way to handle it. What did my father do? He was so mad that I let somebody, I was 9 years old, the kid was 13 or 14. He was so upset with me letting it happen because I was a big kid as a kid that he said, listen, here's what you're going to do. He handed me a little miniature baseball bat. He actually showed me where to hit the kid and go get your bike. And if you don't, when you come home, it's going to be a lot worse from you than what he did.
Wow.
So what happened was I got my bike back. I did exactly what he said. And I came home. And the reason it's so defining is he was the most proud I've ever seen him of me, that I cracked some kid across his bridge of his nose and got my bike back rather than handling it like a normal father would.
Wow.
And then, that's how the reason it's so defining is that's how messed up my childhood was.
That's got to be really hard. And when you're growing up like that the whole time, and then you spend time in prison, it kind of like reinforces that idea, right? That you got to be the tough guy. You got to stand up for yourself, whatever. I can't imagine that it was easy for you to turn to a life of compassion.
It wasn't easy, but it feels so right. And it was time, and I couldn't go on anymore. It was just like, I can't be this, because it was, for some reason, I knew deep down inside, I wasn't that guy. I wasn't that troublemaker. I wasn't that, mean person, selfish. Because believe it or not, I'm an empath. So to behave like that, because I was brought up like that, it never felt right.
Yeah.
Never felt right.
I can totally relate to that.
So now here I am, a proclaimed tough guy and, acting up and doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm eating poor, innocent animals. Like, when I learned about this, I was just like I said before, just so disgusted in myself and so let down. And part of this, I've done some interviews, but I've never really focused on this because everybody's been so intrigued with the prison, like I told you, that I wanted to get this out in this interview because I want people to know that I know I was wrong. And there's other people still to this day that are living this life blind like I was. So we, as vegans, we can't get mad at them. All we can keep doing is try to, hopefully when they're ready, they'll join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you're going by the name Convicted Vegan now. We mentioned in the intro of the podcast that you have this name for more than one reason. One had to do with the prison sentence, but what's your other reason for the name?
Because I'm convicted in veganism. Because I'm convicted in becoming a better person. Because did an ethical reset. My core values are different, and I'm convicted with everything in me of doing the right thing every day. Like I said before, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. Far from it. Really far from it before. But I'm trying every day to get better and be a better person.
That's
so
cool.
I'm convicted to this journey. I'm convicted to it.
That's awesome. So your book that we mentioned earlier, is that out yet, or are you still writing it?
It's out. It was released actually within a year of my release.
Oh.
So it was real. Yeah, I got out 1 year and 1 day. I got out October 7th, 2019. I turned it from a screenplay into a book and published it in 1 year and 1 day. So October 8th, it was on Amazon and 70 other selling platforms, high-end bookstores online across the world.
That's awesome. What a great accomplishment.
Yeah, I've done a few things since I've been out. I've been very, very busy.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What's life been like since you've been out?
Well, like I said, I turned Infinity Crew from a screenplay into a book. I sent it to a ghostwriter when I was done. She did her thing. Then I got it back and I edited it 5 more times myself. I launched my own clothing brand called The Convicted Vegan Wear, which is available on my website, theconvictedvegan.com. I have a store there. I started studying again, and I'm now a certified life coach with that course. And what I'm most proud of, more proud than all of that, is I'm taking amazing care of my mother. Like I said, I got out because she had the stroke. And I'm taking amazing care of her. I'm showing her a much better quality of life. She's happy. Her eyes light up every time she sees me, because like I said, 19 out of 23 years, the last 23 years I spent in prison. And me and my mother are like very, very, very close. She's my rock. And also I'm super proud that I'm rebuilt my relationship with my children because they grew up without me. So, especially my son didn't even really get to know me. He was 2.5 when I went away. He's now going to be 19.
Wow.
So we had, we're tight. We had lunch yesterday with me, him and his girlfriend. Everything's great with my kids. I got a grandson. His name is Landon. I got to get up there. He lives in Maine. So it's been tough for me to get out of the state, but things are loosening up. I had a curfew for a year. That just got dropped. So, the court gave me a 2-year curfew when they let me out, but I'm doing so well. They cut it in half and they released me recently after 1 year. So that was great.
That's cool.
My children, my kids, Talina, Tamar, Carissa, and Dante, like I said, they grew up without me. I wanted to plug them, say their names, tell them I love them. That's going great. I recently met with 2 big producers who I gave my book. They read it. They loved it. And they told me I need to make it into a screenplay, which I had it in before, but I changed so much when I did the book. As being out, you have different ideas and stuff. So I got some great new ideas and I changed the book. So now I'm in the process now of making it back into the screenplay. They're eager to see it. And like I said, they're big people. So hopefully I'm trying to get a movie and a series deal and hopefully a sequel. So, I live by the law of attraction.
Yeah.
And, with the last 6 letters of attraction are action. So I don't just sit back. I act every day moving forward. So I'm trying to get that movie, series, and sequel, but I like to get like multiple series, so that's my goal. I've seen it. I've seen myself. I know it sounds crazy, but even when I was in prison, I saw myself on the red carpet, and now I'm out here and I'm hopefully going to make it happen. Not hopefully, I'm going to make that.
There you go. That's amazing.
One thing I'm going to ask like listeners and viewers is when I met with the production companies, they said I need to build a social media following. Since I've been in prison all these years, I'm really not good with social media and I'm getting a little help, but people are busy and they have lives. So I would appreciate it. And I'd be honored if anybody who's listening could follow me on Instagram. I need to build up my Instagram and tell people about me. Check it out. My website, theconvictedvegan.com. My bio is in there. I have a YouTube page, The Convicted Vegan. I got 6 or 7 interviews that I've done on there. I just started that, trying to build up, like I said, the social media following because it's easy to get a deal. It's easy for me to turn my dreams into reality that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll list all of those links in the description of the podcast as well. So for those listening that may be driving or not looking at the description or can't get into their phone, they could check it out later. So, wow, you're doing so much. And I'm so happy that you were able to make this life change. And I mean, one extreme to the other. I mean, I guess, where we're at now, I don't call veganism extreme, but so many other people do. So, oh man, was there anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap it up today?
Well, as far as the veganism, one thing that I heard recently that really struck home is for the viewers. If you, like they said, raise your hand when I was watching the show if you know anybody that's had a heart attack in your family or close friends or cancer, that kind of thing, right? And then, I would bet that like tons of people would be raising their hands. Then they said, now the guy who was doing the show said, raise your hand if you know anybody that's died from a gunshot wound or stabbing. So think about it. We go through life killing ourselves with food. And that's like the main cause of death is like there's over 800,000 people had heart attacks last year.
Jeez.
It's amazing. We have people that aren't open to veganism and eating better. It just blows my mind, Yeah. And then the animals, poor animals. Every day we don't eat, we eat vegan, we save an animal. Gallons of water in the environment for our kids. So I just hope people that are into the fitness, like your listeners, become open to veganism and just check it out.
Absolutely.
Look at me. If I could do it, anybody could, because I'm hardcore Italian. I believe in the keto diet, all meat and cheese. You know what I mean? So open your eyes. That's all of my messages as far as veganism is. Open your eyes. Give it a chance. Do it for the animals. You call yourself an animal lover, well, be one, because I called myself one, and I was the farthest thing from one, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love the vulnerability you've had today, the humility you've had today. I know it's much different than many years ago for you. So it's really cool hearing this side.
No, I would have never done this years ago.
Exactly.
I put a picture up on social media with 2 flowers in my ears, joking around saying, this is my compassionate side. And my guy friends that knew me from before are like, I'm going to post that on my website. And I was like, no, post the vegan part. That was, you know what I mean? Because compassion is what you will become if you give yourself this chance and opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
this journey has been amazing. It's a journey of redemption, and I'm just going with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. I love it. And I love the chance. Thank you. Gave me the chance to come on your show.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I love hearing cool stories like this and people that are just doing stuff for the animals and moving forward. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I can't wait for all of our listeners to check it out and check out your Instagram. Once again, that was The Convicted Vegan. That's pretty much everything for you, right? Your website, your Instagram, and then is that your Facebook name as well?
The website's theconvictedvegan.com. Yeah. My Facebook is The Convicted Vegan.
Perfect.
Instagram. And then I have a personal page, Anthony Bucci. And like I said, I'm a certified life coach now. So I'm open, I'm going to start my career on that. So if anybody needs life coaching and, look at what I've done in a year. And I can help you to achieve your goals through hard work and discipline. It's all about discipline. Shutting that cell phone off.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest thing. The cell phone is addictive, but if you want to make yourself something, like I have to shut it off because I do not disturb because, it's hard to get things done with the phones nowadays.
Absolutely.
But anyways, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to help people. I'm dying to help people. It's my niche and I'm with it. If
people are interested in the life coaching, is that available on your website?
No, they can just direct message me on my Instagram page.
Perfect.
And then, I'll give them a first session free to see if we're a good fit, what their needs are. And, I'm not looking to make a killing. I'm just looking to help.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, everybody who's listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. For more things Vegan Danielle, visit me on Instagram at vegan_Danielle or on my website at www.vegandanielle.com.